My name is Keith Gerard, and this is Nancy Schulman. And Nancy and I will be presenting the next piece here. We are with the Massachusetts Small Business Development Center Network. It's a big title. We're out of the Berkshire Regional office there. And we welcome you tonight and are appreciative of our host, AIER, in terms of allowing us the opportunity to be here. And we will be presenting small businesses, challenges, growth, and strategies for today. What we're attempting to do is to take a couple of some of the economic conditions, perhaps, and then try to interpret them a little bit in terms of what you, as a small business owner or thinking about being in small business, might experience. So before we get started, how many of you are a small business owner? Okay, great. Okay, good. Even the cameraman is, so that's great, that's good. How many of you are thinking about starting a business? Okay, great. That gives us an idea of who's in the audience and what we might anticipate as far as questions and or thoughts. So what we would like to first start off is by taking the challenges part of it. And the challenges we're going to broadly, at least at this point, define as challenging conditions. They could be economic and or other. And to lead us with that is Nancy.
Let's move this up here if you're going to be writing.
Yes.
Put it up there. Okay, so I'm going to open it up and ask people. Keith's going to be the scribe. What are some of the challenges that you've observed or that you yourself are facing, both at the national, the local level, and any that are specific to women?
I feel people don't understand what I am talking about when I mention mediation, mediating a problem. So I just feel like they don't understand what my business would be.
Okay, so they don't understand your business specifically.
Or even the concept of it.
Okay, so that's your personal challenge of your business.
In Connecticut, we have an issue there.
So you think it's only in Connecticut? Okay, anybody else?
Well, you have to say we still have a weak economy. Now, that's a national and a local issue, I would say.
Is there anything in particular that you would identify as a condition or an area that is particularly impactful, either as you as a small business owner or as looking to start a small business?
Well, one of the things would be unemployment, because you wouldn't have enough people with paychecks to buy your business. I think that could ripple through if you're a nonprofit. There'd be fewer clients because you know, if it's a business-to-business business, your businesses don't have enough extra money to hire you. You have to keep talking?
No, does anyone else want to say anything about the economy or their business, the challenges they face, or challenges as a woman in business or about to start a business? Yes?
The challenge for me is increased competition, and the fact that the competition is coming from non-traditional sources.
Such as the internet.
Such as the internet, such as our wholesale suppliers.
What is your business?
I have a retail store.
The retail business, facing challenges from other sources. Yes?
I think as a woman, the challenge I have in my business is men bully me.
Men bullying you in your business. What kind of business is it?
Real estate.
Okay.
Even when I challenge them and say, you're bullying me, they don't see it.
Is that your clients bullying you or your fellow realtors? Okay. So that's a challenge in several businesses for women that women have, not just in your. Yes, it's getting a little narrower, but there's still that gap.
And I think it's more of a generation.
Definitely, and we're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about that in light of other aspects of business as well, the generational differences.
You know, speaking to the gaps, I feel there are big gaps between the laws for anything from like criminal laws, domestic abuse, and the business laws. there are different interests, or even private schools, private sector, or even public schools. No, people aren't clear what's against the law where. And we just need a huge education campaign, and nobody wants to be the educator. I don't know why. So that's a huge problem.
And how does that affect the business, a business
Businesses
or
will
business?
cover, businesses won't give women a day off to go to court, either to get a restraining order or a divorce. Also, I go to national conferences on this called Battered Mothers, Custody Conference, it's a lovely title. But the point is, civil court and criminal court are like night and day. What's against the law in criminal court is rewarded in civil court. It's a disaster.
That's a whole other topic.
Yes.
But I can understand your point that you were making about how certain laws that affect women, or there need to be certain laws that affect women to help them facilitate their businesses. Yes?
My concern at the moment is I was planning to use borrowed money to kind of really jump into the business and get going, but without knowing what was necessarily going on with the Fed reserves, I'm getting nervous about borrowing money, and then so cutting back how I'm going to start. I'm then starting, just jumping in full feet. I'm thinking, maybe I better not do it that way, and I don't know what's right or wrong.
Okay, borrowing. Have you tried to borrow yet?
Oh, I've got the money. I don't want to spend it.
So you have borrowed it. You're just sitting on it. Okay. Should we
Okay.
wrap this up?
Yeah,
I think we got
we
a lot
would
of.
probably go on for a while with some
Okay.
other ideas, and we do want to take those into consideration. But one of the things that we'd like to do is try to connect what might be some economic conditions with what you might be experiencing. So the first we'd like to talk about is loss in real estate equity. How many people have experienced that? All right. On the residential side or on the commercial side? Residential. So it's happened on both sides, correct? And Steve talked a little bit about what were some of the drivers of the gross domestic product, and that's 66% of the economy. And one of the things he mentioned was the ability to be able to borrow. And if your equity in your home or in your commercial building has decreased, then that can have an impact in terms of what you're able to borrow. So here's a chart here, and there might be some small numbers here, but let me just explain it a little bit to you. It's household real estate percentage of equity, and it basically goes from 1952 to 2012. 2013 was not yet available, but you can clearly see it has declined. And you can particularly see that drop there that occurred around 2007. So what does that mean? What does that mean to you as a business owner or as a potential business owner? What might that mean? Yes?
Many business owners fund their business through the equity in their home. Borrow money.
Absolutely, and Nancy and I can attest, there are people that come in our offices all the time that are looking at a home equity loan or a home equity line of credit, and the home equity line of credit is probably the cheapest money you can get. And so it's a way in which people can start businesses, all right? Now, if that equity is not there, then what happens? They have some difficulties, all right? I had a gentleman come in probably about a month ago that was interested on the commercial side to get a loan, and he owned the building. But when he had it appraised much less than what he had purchased it for, and basically had no equity in it. He was looking at tapping into the equity of that building, either to borrow against or to use it as a collateral to obtain a loan from a bank. So that not being present, he wasn't able to do that.
And we see this at the local level as well. In Berkshire County, from 2007 to 2013, the value of houses have decreased by an average of $51,000. So that means you have that much less to borrow from. And that's about a 22% drop which correlates also with the
With
national chart.
Yeah, with pretty much that drop right there. Now, we're talking about the real impact, but then there's also the perception, right? And you mentioned it before in terms of confidence in borrowing, right? It's not maybe directly related to the equity, but that might contribute to it. If your home is worth less than what it was before, and you might be thinking, well, I don't know even if I have the capacity to borrow if I want to, because I'm not exactly sure what's going to happen there. The second is what I like to call, or could be called, legacy of job loss. All right? And here's a chart here with a lot of lines. And let me explain it to you. This is the percentage of job losses in post-World War II recessions. So all those other colors here up there, whoops, right, sorry, there it is. All these colors here are previous recessions. Now you can quickly notice graphically that they haven't gone, this is the current one right here. All right, and this is the most up to date. This goes to about April of 2013. So you can quickly see that this recession has gone deeper in terms of job loss and the amount of time that it's taken to recover. This is base. This is a baseline. Okay? So it's a deeper in terms of job loss and it's longer. Now look at this space right here. What do you think that represents? What might that represent? That's a loss of a whole bunch of people's wealth because they weren't unemployed for that whole period of time here. So that can contribute to real issues, but also, again, can contribute to that confidence factor, which was mentioned before, and or that perception. Have you experienced, impact in terms of your job, in terms of your business, or your intention to start a business based on job loss, or what may be either yourself or around you? No, you haven't. Have others? I'm seeing a number, right? Okay.
That's one of the reasons that people do start businesses, due to job losses. And it's interesting, there was an article in the paper the other day that talked about how there is greater unemployment amongst males than amongst females. Does anybody know why? I'm talking about unemployment in general, not so much in small business, but why there's more unemployment for men than for women. In other words, why women are finding more jobs now than men are. The type of jobs, absolutely. Men are more in manufacturing, construction, big industry, and women are more in education, healthcare, and social services.
Well, I just wanted to say here that the other thing that we have is that a lot of those male jobs are never coming back. That it's not only that manufacturing pays better, those jobs are never coming back. So that's the
They've
other
even
thing.
said that the number of farms have gone down. In, I think New York, they said 150 farms in Dutchess County are now less than 50 in the past 10 years, something like that. So.
There was a recent article actually in the Berkshire Eagle that talked about that the job loss for women, at least according to this article, has been neutralized. Okay? So there is some discrepancies, and we'll talk a little bit about some gender discrepancies in some of this, and some of the gender neutrality that's actually occurring.
Okay, so you can all read this quote. While the commonalities between people of the same age and gender are shrinking, the differences between people of different ages and genders are decreasing too. So if you think back many generations ago about our grandparents and our grandmothers and our mothers, and they weren't working, and it was common, it was expected that they not work outside the home. Women always work, we know that, whether it's inside the home or outside the home. That started to change with my generation, and now with my children's generation even more so, and we're going to see that gap become narrower and narrower, both with gender and with age. And we see it all the time, Keith and I now, when younger people are coming in, the confidence level seems to be so much greater than the older people, particularly women I'm talking about here. And that will continue. But there are still some obstacles. There's challenges of women in business. And a woman named Emily Ross, who's actually studied women in Australia, has found that these are the 5 most challenging issues that face women who are going into business or in small business. The first one is micromanaging. Who can identify with that? I think all women and some men can with micromanaging. We like to do it all because we somehow have done it all. I think it's part of our DNA, as I say. You know, we've always been in charge of everything, the household, and in our own businesses, we want to handle it all. Well, you don't have to. Now, somebody in a very small business that's just starting up, that doesn't have a lot of money, they're not going to go out and hire someone at $100 an hour to do work for them. However, there are ways around that. There are ways that you can solicit help from friends, from family, maybe with your website, with graphics, with sales, that sort of thing, or with your bookkeeping. Don't try to do it all. It just becomes overwhelming and frustrating, and sometimes you just can't handle it, so you give up. So micromanaging is a big problem that women seem to have. Fear of debt. Well, you didn't have fear of debt. You went to the bank and you got a loan. That's terrific. But it is something that a lot of women have a problem with. Why? Well, one of the reasons is if you don't go to a bank or try to get money from an individual, a private funding, then you don't have to say to yourself, oh my God, my business is real. Now I really have to work it. I've got to pay back this loan. That's one fear. Another fear, well, you tell me, what's another fear of having debt? I know in my case, my father always said, don't borrow money. It was just ingrained in me. You know, it's less so again with the younger generations, but I always had this fear of debt because my father said you don't want to have to owe anybody. So that was my fear of debt. It's also risky. You borrow money, you got to pay it back, or they take something from you, right? Fear of thinking big. Anybody relate to that one? That's another risky thing. Oh my God, what happens if I grow? You know, then I'm going to have to deal with this issue and that issue, and I'm going to have to hire. It's a fear of growing big. And along with that is the fear of failure. If I grow, the more I'm apt to fail. So there is also a big fear amongst women in particular of growing big. So some people will say, okay, you know, I'm just content selling 10 items a day. I don't want to sell 100 items a day. So that's something that women are now working on. They're thinking bigger. And I've found amongst my younger clients in particular, they are thinking big. Lack of self-belief. That's a biggie. No self-confidence. I can't do it. I don't have the skills. I don't have the whatever it is. There's a lot of women out there that don't believe in themselves. They don't believe that they can do it. And I'm sure that there are people in this group that feel that same way. I mean, there are men out there too that feel that way. I'm not saying it's exclusively for women, but I think it's more so for women. And we're still new in this. The women are still new into starting businesses and into going out into the workforce in general. New meaning in the last 2 generations. Now, before we get to the last one, the stereotypes, there's one other that I wanted to add that wasn't in there. And that is that another author who did a study found that there are many more men in startup companies in IT and in IT-related fields. And why is that? That's because women have not traditionally been involved in the sciences and in engineering. So there's a lot of women who are not capturing that piece of small business because they've shied away from those fields. And that's a huge growing field. The last one is stereotypes. There's still a lot of stereotypes out there for women. Women impose it on themselves as well. Well, I can't do it all. And if I do it all, I want to be the best at it. There was an article in today's Berkshire Eagle. Did anybody read the article by Michelle Gilbert in today's Berkshire Eagle? Michelle Gillette. Did you read it? I'm going to do a couple of quotes and then we'll get off of this slide. She was talking about her daughter who wants to be able to do it all, be the best mother and be the good worker and so forth. So she quotes Barnard College president, Deborah Spar. A woman's problem in the United States there's still a woman's problem in the United States, and part of this intractable problem is tied to the fact that women in this country are struggling far more than is necessary, not only to have that ephemeral all, but to do it all alone. Instead of working collectively to make changes as feminists did in the 60s and 70s, women today have little time left over for group action. Women are no longer working together. Instead, Spar says, women are focusing on their individual struggles. Rather than fighting for better school systems, for instance, we're focusing in on our own kids' SAT scores. We're told to lean in, but what we need is something substantial to lean on to make our lives less stressful. So we need to collectively work on this issue of getting help. And a lot of it is from other women, from men in our lives. Work together to make the things happen that you were talking about, to break that stereotype.
Right, I was hoping to just mention that before, and that's been happening here with this conscious awareness that we really do need each other, and it makes a difference if we start even here. And we had the speaker of, it's women in the Berkshires, I forget what, I should know it because I'm not from up here, but they've raised like $1 million. They said they actually traveled to a world convention, a certain number of women from this area, and over 10 years, I think they've given Girls Fund maybe $1 million. Women's Fund. Yeah.
And what's their goal?
Well, they want to help women helping women and girls, so it's Women's Fund of Western Mass, and I think they've given $1 million through their different fundraisers, and over a 10-year period. It's like, oh, okay, you know, there's activities and some funding.
Right, and I think that's terrific. We need to expand to beyond money, too.
Right.
Does anyone else have anything else to say about this slide?
You mentioned that the young women can think big. Why do you think that is?
I really think that it has to do, again, with the women of the older generations kind of setting the path. That now it's easier for them to go down. They are, if you think about it, there are more female doctors and lawyers than ever before, and the percentages are higher than there are males in med school and law school. And that's starting to happen in business. We're probably lagging a little bit behind that. But there's more of us out there, so we can see others have succeeded, other women have succeeded. You know, my doctor's a woman, my lawyer's a woman. I can be a successful businesswoman because a lot of women are doing these things now.
I think also the younger women have a better education than, I'm over 60, so then the women are over 60. So I'm also an educator, so I can see now that the children are up 2 grades from what we learned in 3rd grade. What we learned in 5th grade, they're learning in 3rd grade. So they are learning so much more in high school and in college than we even had access to.
Yeah, that's a very good point.
At 60, we could actually go back to college, and because everything was being done in a new way.
And there are more women in college than when we were in college as well.
Right.
There's also more opportunities out there for women in general, like for everybody. And women are grasping onto it too. Internet, Facebook, and so on.
I'm sorry, I just sort of can't let this go. And
Okay.
sorry. First of all, I'll confess my age. I'm 67 years old. Okay? And
Don't look a day over
First-
29, just
thank
saying.
you. First of all, fear of thinking big has never been my problem. And I really take exception, though maybe the statistics are out there, and I'm not trying to be a personal bragger for it. But I do take exception to the fact of separating it out and saying people over 65 can't think big. I really do. And as far as some of the other things that are there, when I started my business, it was in the early 90s. I was starting in an area because I had the expertise. I wanted to live in the Berkshires. And to live in the Berkshires meant I had to find employment because I had to be able to feed myself. So I drew on what I knew. I started the business in that field at a time when things weren't all that rosy in my field. I took every bit of money I had. So when you talk about fear of debt, you talk about fear of being big, I threw it in it because it was either do that or die. And I meant die in many different ways. I had to make it go. And the only way you find out if anything is going to go is by sticking your neck out and doing it. And I'm 67 years old, and I'm sticking my neck out every day that I go to work in order to keep my business alive in a changing marketplace that is moving so fast that it can make your head spin.
I think
I
that's
think
it.
that's remarkable. I mean, you're probably the only one here who's been in business that long.
Yep. So
And you're still in business.
We could probably spend the rest of the evening talking about the challenges and/or the responses to those challenges. But I'd like to be able to, if it's okay with everybody, is to move on for opportunities, because that's the second part of our presentation here, is to talk a little bit about opportunities. And these opportunities are for growth. And there's lots of different ways we could approach it. We decided that we would look at two areas here. One is first understand how people get information, shop, and buy. And the reason why we chose that is because there is a tremendous change that's underway in terms of how that happens. And let me give you some information here. We now know that 86 million Americans get their retail information, probably a lot of other types of information, but certainly retail information, through their mobile devices. And you can see, based on the numbers here, they're dramatically increasing. Dramatically increasing, so that at 2015, it's going to be almost double this year's projections. So if you're a business owner, or thinking about being a business owner, and you're in the business of selling products, if you're not embracing the m-commerce approach, if you're not using mobile devices as part of your distribution, as part of your marketing, then you're missing out on a whole big trend. That's just one example. There are many others. But just for the sake of time and for the purpose of this presentation, what we wanted to do is call out just three as illustrations of not just the change in terms of the use of mobile technology, but the change in social dynamics, social conditions, and in the business dynamics that are happening in small businesses. So these are just three things that were plucked, that we took out of the marketing information that's becoming more and more available. The first, it's stressed out era. How many people can relate to being stressed? We all can, right? And in fact, it's become so predominant and such an important thing, it's now being considered a serious medical condition. And here's just a couple of examples how using that information, using that understanding of a shift or change in culture, dynamics, behavior, buying patterns, can help you identify potential opportunities for businesses. When I saw relaxation drinks, I went, what, really? Were you aware of the relaxation drinks? Nancy, I think you have a story, actually. Well, one of your clients is actually launching.
And she's in this room. She might want to mention her new business.
It's up to you. You don't have to.
I mean, it's not really relaxed.
This is Ashley Barrett, and she's doing healthful drinks. Some of the herbs that she will be using to create the drinks are for certain health aspects, including stress.
Including stress. Okay, so that might be an opportunity, you know, taking advantage of a trend or dynamic that's occurring. And then yoga. I mean, yoga is pretty popular here in the Berkshires. It's not as popular in other places in the country and so forth. They're predicting, as you can see, a growth rate of about 5%, and that's relatively conservative. Now, what is interesting is some of the things underneath that. Selling monthly or annual memberships rather than per sessions, which is, in the clients that we see, is the predominant way in which that's being done. Target men and pets. 82% of the participants in yoga classes are women. All right, men, pets. I don't have a statistic on it, and don't hold me to it, but the pet industry is booming. It's not just about products, it's also about services. Okay? So, and sell stuff. Okay? One of the big shifts that is occurring, and we're encouraging as advisors, if you're in a service industry, if you're in a service business, learn to become a retailer as well. Add retail products to your service mix. And then, of course, if you're using mobile devices, then you're ahead of the game, okay? In marketing, in the marketing circles right now, when they're talking about internet presence, they say, think mobile first, before desktop, before tablets, because that's where it's going.
So in what way do you mean mobile?
When you design your presence, there's certain ways in which it needs to be designed for, obviously, for a smaller screen, and also in terms of how robust the content is. We'll get into the social media stuff in just a little bit. Plus size apparel. When I saw these statistics, I just said, really? Okay? But you play that out. In Pittsfield, I believe is just opened is a plus size store. So somebody's paying attention to these kinds of dynamics that are occurring. Now, quickly, you could probably think that there are lots of other sort of possibilities that based on that information. Male grooming and spa services. Okay? If you look at some of this information, it's eye-popping. 39% of men who have had a facial get one every week, as compared to 6% of women. Men who get manicures spend an average of $37 on the service, as opposed to women who typically spend about $23. And it goes on.
They just don't tell you.
I'm going to the gym, honey.
Yeah.
Okay. So we gave you a flavoring of some of the opportunities. Now, what might be some of the strategies? Okay, we have some economic trends that are going on, some not so great, some perhaps good. We have some social trends that are occurring. We have some marketing, technology kind of trends are going on. What could be some of the strategies? Well, the first one is be on top of your cash. Okay, I have given presentations over the last 6 years, in good times, bad times, okay times, and this is always something that is included, or something like this is always included in those. It's essentially, it's a basic. Be on top of your cash. When Nancy and I see folks, right, what's one of the major concerns they have?
Cash flow, money.
Cash flow. Money coming in, money going out.
Right.
And it's very simple. It's not complicated. It's very simple. You know, increase your revenue or decrease your expenses.
And be mindful of it, too.
And be mindful of it. Prepare cash flows. Prepare documents or reports that can help you manage it. And then, of course, with any business, you have financial drivers. And here are some of them. Net and gross margins, really important. Labor cost. Inventory turnover if you're a product-driven business, and certainly accounts receivable. The accounts receivable are very important in recessionary times. A lot of money can be locked up in receivables without you having access to it. Another strategy is to market to the social changes. We talked a little bit about go mobile, think mobile, and then also using social media. Okay, here's some information. It's basically from 2010 to 2013. It has digital, and you can clearly see the online is staying about the same. But look what's increasing here, mobile. Okay, this is the amount of hours spent on those devices. It's interesting that television is staying about the same, print is decreasing, and then there's this other category. Another thing to look at is mobile applications that users use worldwide. 2012 is about this is in billions, 1 billion. 2013, it's projected at 1.3, and look how that number increases. It's a number of app users worldwide. So that's mobile devices that people are downloading apps and using apps. So they're receiving their information, they're making their purchase decisions, they're shopping. If your marketing strategy does not incorporate mobile technology, whether it be the phone or whether it be the tablet, or now it's the watch. Have you seen the watches? They have watches. They're coming out. Right. So yeah, so you could do your Dick Tracy kind of thing. But yes, there are those now. Nancy?
Okay, so the use of social media, not just mobile devices, but Facebook, Twitter, is really important, particularly if you're in the retail business. But in any business, I have 2 clients who started their businesses on Facebook, just not taking in money, just advertising more or less, saying, this is what I have, this is what I'm going to do with it, like me. And then they ultimately went into the brick and mortar, and they already had a huge following. And both of them are very successful in Pittsfield. So your social media, even if you don't sell, and generally you don't sell on Facebook. You sell off your website, but you can drive people to your website. So Facebook is really the #1. Twitter is starting to get up there, but on Facebook it's so much more versatile because you can do pictures, you can talk more, you can send to links and so on and so forth. This is another thing where age has become an issue because of the people that I've seen, there's a lot more resistance from the older people to get on Facebook and to market their products on Facebook. With the younger people, it's just a natural. I mean, they're already on Facebook, so now they're going to talk about what their business is on Facebook. So yes, you can brand, you can build relationships, and it does improve your search engine ranking as well. I can't tell you how many clients I have who have websites. And I go and I say, okay, let's Google, find you on Google. You can't find them. You have to be so cognizant of your search engine optimization because if you can't be found, and nobody uses a phone book anymore, right? People go to the web. They're going to try to find you through Google. And one of the ways to help is blogs. That's a really good way to help your search engine optimization. Blogging. Facebook likes is another one. And you save money on advertising. Some people don't advertise in print media at all, and they still get a lot of business. Yes?
I would say there are some free sites, like I think WordPress. I'm on something called Drupal Gardens, and I invented the word lidfully, L-I-D, fully. I don't know if I have to copyright that, but I like it because I've had 500 to 1,000 looks on things. I don't know if they read the whole thing, but it's very safe, it's free. I'm just trying things out. And it is scary. Like, I got an audience, I'll never read that. And only a couple people comment, but that might be another way too, just to comment on other people's things, get used to it, have friends help.
Well, Facebook is free, and like you said, WordPress, and there are a number of products that will help you create a website that are free as well. But again, you've got to really work them to figure out how to get noticed on Google.
Before we go to the next slide, I just want to take a poll here just very quickly. How many people think that the retail industry is increasing? Retail sales. It actually is. Retail sales are actually increasing. And what do you think is driving that? Online, mobile in particular. We looked through a lot of different charts and things like that, and we don't have them in this presentation just to keep it into the time limits. But if we were to show that, you would see that mobile, the use of mobile, buying online and so forth, is really dramatically increasing retail sales. However, it's called the digital commerce. It's called digital commerce is increasing. The bricks and mortar retail places, what do you think's happening with them? They're struggling. They're either adapting or they're struggling. And it's being referred to as, quote, the third space. It's a place where people go to buy, but they also go for other types of things. Entertainment, upscale leisure. Think of a bookstore, an upscale bookstore. What do they have? Wine. Coffee, things for you to, wine, all right? They have upscale leisure activities. Oh, by the way, they sell books. They also provide you online. And so the third space for retail is now becoming a place to gather. So that's one way. The other thing, too, in terms of adapting retail spaces is the use of kiosks in your retail place and the use of video. Because if it's true that people are using those mobile devices and they're using the internet, they're also looking at lots of images. What's the number 2 search engine, do you think? YouTube. YouTube is the number 1 search engine. So you've got lots of people that are looking at video. If you're not incorporating video in your websites, if you're not incorporating videos in your physical bricks and mortar sites, if you're not incorporating at any place that you do marketing, then you're missing out because that's what people are mostly interested. And one of the last strategy.
This is a big bugaboo I have, Keith will tell you. I'm really big on researching. Research, research, research. Research your current product, your business, your competitors, your location, your market. Just do a lot of research, whether you're about to go into business or you're already into business. Those are just a few sites. There are a lot more. Talk with your vendors, suppliers, customers, business owners, professionals. Read. Just make sure you know what's going on and who else is out there doing what you're doing. One of the things I do when people come to me for advising and consulting, I give homework. And a lot of the homework I give, and I must say that women are much better at doing it than men in general, is research. Because that's a big piece, particularly if you're just starting out. There are a million good ideas out there. But to execute the ideas, you really have to do your homework to do that. So this will tell you a lot about trends. Now, what can we say about trends? Well, right now, Keith pointed out a few trends. One of the things to be careful of in trends is to make sure that whatever trend you're following is not just a big shiny object that you found, and say, oh, that's a great trend, I'm going to go off and do it. Trends can be found in the businesses that you're familiar with. They can be found in, like yoga, okay? The trends in yoga that Keith put up there. You already know yoga. So now you're going to market it to men. Now you're going to market it to pets. That's a new trend, but it's one you're familiar with. So my advice is just to be cautious about trends because we know some trends just come and go very quickly. And if it is something you want to follow, just be aware that you should get into it fast because it may die in a few years. You may have to get out of it fast.
Just a point or two on this slide right here. These websites here, as Nancy mentioned, is just one of a bunch, many more that you can go. These websites here particularly have free content, so you can go there and get free information. But it also has paid services that you can get. And then, of course, we wanted to add low technology, or maybe no technology, just simply talking and reading, those kinds of activities that can provide you information. Now, the structure of this presentation is sort of like a funnel. We were very broad in the beginning. We talked a lot about some economic conditions. We talked about some gender-related sort of discrepancies. We talked in broad ways about social changes. We talked about the advancement of technology and its place and so forth. It all boils down really to this slide. The times, they are a-changing. And if you're going to be in business, you need to be aware of the changes that are occurring. You need to be aware of what type of social changes are occurring, what kinds of things are happening in the economy, and what might be pertinent to you, help you make decisions. But also the use of technology. Are you using technology in the way that can best serve you in terms of getting your message out, mining prospects, and so forth? Questions?
Before we go to questions, I just want to say that there are a number of handouts we have back there, and some of them do have resources on them. So
and there's also
please grab some.
There's also some information about who we are and what we do. And our services, once you complete a short form, which is in the back, are free and they're confidential. It's a collaboration between the University of Massachusetts, Amherst Eisenberg School of Management, along with the SBA on the federal level, as well as the state government. So, and we're one of 6 in the state and 1,000 across the country. So it's the resources that can be available to you.
And there's also a sheet back there, if you wouldn't mind filling out with your opinions and, yes, thank you.
Yes, we have a evaluation sheets.
And we are evaluated.
Yeah,
by the state, by UMass, and by the federal government.
So if you could please fill out at the end of this
helpful.
Evaluation sheet.
So from the work that you do in your office and the experience you've had there, how would you compare this area geographically with other parts of the state and other parts of the country in terms of where we stand on some of these issues? Do you think we're positioned to utilize them, or are we utilizing them as well as other areas?
What specific kind of things were you thinking about?
Well, a lot of the issues you've talked about. I mean, specifically, I could focus on the use of mobile information, for instance. Or, I mean, do you think that business people in the Berkshires are up to speed compared to other parts of the state in seeing some of the things you say we should be looking at?
I personally am not as familiar with other parts of the state or other parts in the country, but I see more and more people getting involved in these things, like the social media and the mobile apps. Probably you find it more so in the big cities, more so than in the Berkshires, where people who are facing a lot more competition than we are up here, you'll probably find it more so there. But it's starting to catch on.
And we're also such a creative economy in the Berkshires, so there's a whole movement in this area. I just wanted to firstly thank you both so much for this general presentation. One of the things, I'm an entrepreneur coach, particularly for women, and one of the things I've noticed in my work with my clients is that the mindset issue is actually, it is very big, in the sense that women often will really stop themselves because they don't have exactly what you pointed out. And that it's critical when we're talking with women business owners that we really address the mindset issues, because once they have the tools to address those issues, they can then just step much more confidently with greater clarity into creating their businesses. So that mindset piece is actually a stumbling block for a lot of women.
Do you find there's a difference in ages with that stumbling block?
You know, older women tend to be a little more risk averse. They're much more interested, and we don't want to generalize, but of my clients, the avoidance of failure is much bigger often than the sort of movement towards success. You know, if you're always looking to avoid failure, then you have a different kind of business. But if you're very committed to being successful, strategic, and smart about it, your business will succeed with resources like yours. You know, so that's essentially.
Great. We have time for one more question, but Nancy and I will be available after this to answer any questions. Yes?
I'm just curious about, because you were talking about businesses and marketing using Facebook as the number one.
Why is that more so over like LinkedIn? I mean, LinkedIn was created for business connections. So why wouldn't you be doing that? You know, how did that?
From my experience, I find that LinkedIn seems to be more valuable for people who are marketing themselves, looking for jobs perhaps, more so than trying to advertise their business and their products. I think you'll see a lot more of that on Facebook than on LinkedIn.
Well,
and LinkedIn is good networking though, definitely. But then you can always refer somebody from LinkedIn to your website or to Facebook to get more information on your business.
here's some contact information. Please, before you go, if you could complete the evaluations, we'll get them to you.